Hello, everyone. So, I've got a little story to tell you. In 2008, two men met through a mutual friend. They were both working on accessing and utilizing high consciousness fields. Jeffrey Stegman was creating high consciousness fields and cultures in business, and Clayten Stedmann, as a coach in business as a spiritual path, was creating high consciousness fields for healing the human mind, body, and spirit. They came together with an inventor who had devoted his life to creating free energy for humanity. Although he did not create a free energy device, he had discovered a way to redirect and focus large amounts of life force energy, also known as subtle energy, on an object. Between Jeff's experience in engineering and Clayton's knowledge and extensive practice in consciousness kinesiology and the Hawkins map based on David Hawkins' map of consciousness, they re-engineered the original device to broadcast a high consciousness field to specific locations around the world. At first, Clayton and Jeffrey used the device and associated technology to raise consciousness around the world as a public service project. As they were able to increase the power available and the ability to positively affect a property, they brought the consciousness raising technology to the public as focused life force energy, or FLFE, lovingly called FLFE by friends and longtime customers. Today, after an additional 10 years of research, thousands of customers, and hundreds of testimonials, Jeffrey and Clayton are expanding the process of developing public awareness of this unique consciousness raising technology. And I can just, as a personal anecdote, I want to tell another little story, and that is that sometime in 2018, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, now in Costa Rica, and I utilized the home office of a dear friend of mine, and her home office was beautifully lit. It was gorgeously, feng shuied. I don't know what she had going on there, but the energy there was absolutely stunning and beautiful, which is why I decided to work there and spend my time there. And she told me on several occasions about this product that she was using called FLFE. And that was the first time I heard of you a couple years ago. And then serendipitously, I did a podcast interview, I think, with Lee Harris, and your team reached out to me after that. And I had already heard of you. And so this was such a fun confluence. And now we've been working together for a while. This was such a fun confluence of events. So I am honored to know y'all, to work with y'all, and to also be the recipient of the amazing technology that you have created. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, what a story, you guys. This is, I mean, the three of y'all coming together is an awesome story. And I wonder sort of what sort of series of events led up to that for y'all. And particularly we'll start with Jeffrey. Like what would you say precipitated this? Had you been intending to create something like this?
No, not at all. It hadn't crossed my mind. But creating high consciousness fields was something that I was doing unconsciously or in the business without really knowing about fields. Because that's not something that's kind of normally in our everyday language, is that there's fields of consciousness. But when I met Clayton, I was working with a coach in Vancouver, and he took me, I always use a coach in business, always feel it's really important to always know that there's more to learn, and you can never know everything, and you always need help. So at some point he said, look, I can't do any more for you. I'm going to move you over to recommend you to Clayton. So I started working with Clayton as a consciousness business coach. So we were working on areas of my consciousness, working on my businesses related to that. I might have a low spot in my consciousness that relates to how I function in the business. So after working with Clayton for years and becoming friends with him, he had told me about this inventor, and I had a reason to go there. So we actually went to the space, to this house, and the experience was really amazing. My hair was like standing straight up. I'd like never felt that way before that I felt when I walked into that space. and it just stuck with me. We went to lunch, and everyone was so beautiful at the restaurant. It's like I could see what was so beautiful about them. It was just quite an experience. And then Clayton and I started working with the technology after that, once we had that experience. And he'd been involved in it for some time. So.
Yeah, Clayton, do you have anything to add to that, and from your vantage point as you led up to the creation of this?
Just reflecting on what Jeff is saying, when I worked with Jeff as a coach, he was focused on creating a great corporate culture. And it's like, it was real exciting to see how that translated into creating a high consciousness field at work. You know, it's really practical. Like a lot of people think, oh, it's this high, do I have to pray all the time? Do I have to meditate? Do I have to have, music playing all the time at a certain megahertz? It's like, well, you can, if you have a company like Jeff does, you can just try to create a really good company, and the goodwill between people, or the goodwill between us and our families or our friends. That's a high consciousness field. It's loving, right? So it's pretty practical and pretty down to earth. It's just that when you get into a specialized field, you start to develop a language about it. But sometimes I forget it's just super simple. It's being kind, considerate, trying to grow up, stuff like that. So, for me, FLFE came out of kind of a humbling, really. I got to a certain place in my practice, and I had a successful practice. I'd been in the coaching business since 1995. I did my first coach training in 95, and I've done 3 different styles of coach training. And I started part-time like most people and built my practice up, and I was I was just kind of in my own way, like probably most of us. We get to a certain point and we're either moving towards our goals or we're stuck, and that stuck it can last for the rest of our lives. But I was going around in circles, I guess. They were pretty nice circles and they were widening circles, but I knew I was not really I wasn't really making the progress that I thought would be reasonable to expect. So I just prayed, okay, Lord, what would you have me do, And then this technology we've been playing with for a while, I really got the message that I should do this with Jeff. And then once FLFE became a certain level of success, we could use the resources of that and the team that's assembled around it to go back and bring some of the work that I created out into the world. And that's starting to emerge now. It's actually 7 years on September 24th, 2020 was our 7th birthday. So I wasn't expecting it. I didn't really want to start another business. I just, when you ask and you get an answer, you have a choice, of course, but my choice was to, I was pretty impressed with Jeff and his operations. When I went down to Jeff's company and visited, we were walking around, the floor and everything, and this is Fred, he's been here 36 years, and this is Tom, he's, John, he's been here 25 years, and this is Fred, he's been here like 18 years, and it's like, I haven't met any company where people hung around that long. So that was one of the things that if I was going to do business as a spiritual path, this is a good guy to do it with. I think that's probably the reason the divine brought us together. So,
I love that. That's beautiful. So it's where sort of the technology and the intention and the business practices all sort of converge. What kind of impact do y'all want to make over the course of the next several years?
Well, I'll start and hand it off to Clayton. Well, we're looking to grow the reach. We have such a positive community in FLFE with customers and, of course, our employees and contractors, people that work in the circle that makes it happen. We're maybe 25 people right now. And the customers are having just such an experience, and we have a private Facebook group where they interact with each other, and they help new people that have just gotten on the service, to use the energy, this available energy that's now in this environment, to change their life. And it's one thing that really touches me so personally every time is these stories about what's happened in their lives and what's changed and how they've been able to use this energy to have a different life. And so for me personally, I would love to see more and more people on the service benefiting from it, being able to create the life they want to create, to be in an environment that supports that. So we're really on a bit of a mission now to get the word out, where to this point it's been all referral. In small group. Every once in a while we'll have a big referral, Regina Meredith interviewing us on Gaia. But for the most part, it's like slow and steady growth with people referring us because they enjoy the experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned community. Jeff, as Sarah was asking that, it was like, the more people that are on the service, the more the level of consciousness of the planet goes up, because a rising tide floats all ships. So having more people on the service is part of it. But I think following on what Jeff said, there's a part about creating a stronger community that's starting to emerge. More of a consciousness community. I don't quite know what that looks like. I think we just have to pay attention to what's going on, and it'll probably be more and more self-evident. But that's the only thing I think I have to add to that, is not only more individuals coming on, but strengthening the community part of it.
What comes to mind when I hear you speak to that is about sort of, it's almost like a vibration community. It's like, whether you know that you're in it or not, there's this community of people who are lifting up their own vibration, which then has a resonance across. So the more that you have this impact of people signing up for your free trial and then extending that beyond the free trial, the more you have that, the more that sort of has this domino effect, like me having my workspace in my friend Tamara's house, as she has this focused life force energy on her house. And by the way, my business kind of started in that it was very new in that environment, and it's gone extremely well. So who knows how much I can attribute to to FLFE. So that's pretty amazing. I'm curious. So we've talked about this sort of offline before, about how you guys measure the consciousness of the planet. And I'm curious, this is totally off my standard line of questioning, but it's something I'm super curious about. And I imagine that at least many of my listeners would be interested to know what the level of consciousness our planet has been at for, say, on average, the last 50, 100 years or something like that, versus where it's at now and where it seems to be heading. Is that too much?
we love those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know who's the most excited to respond to that question. Which of you feels chomping at the bit to respond? You want to go first, Jeffrey?
No, I think I'll hand it to Clayton. He's the expert in this area.
Okay.
I just do a lot of research for the company, so it's just kind of in our wheelhouse. We did a webinar a few months back on the history of consciousness of the planet, and we went back 3,000 years. And I think we might have done even longer than that. With 3,000 years in detail, I think we went back maybe 50,000 years, just like a little 2 data points. So probably the most relevant part of that conversation would be that up to 1986, and people who know Hawkins' work know this, part of it anyway. Up to 1986, the world had been at 190 for hundreds of years. So 190 out of 1,000 on the Hawkins map is about the level of pride. The level of 200 on the Hawkins map is the level of integrity or courage. And then 500 is love, 600 is peace, 700 is kind of enlightenment. Sort of begins at 6, ripens at 7. And then the scale is basically from 1 to infinity. And 1 to 1,000 is the human realm. And it's basically a scale that's measured doing muscle testing or kinesiology. We call it consciousness kinesiology because it's a specialty in kinesiology on measuring consciousness. People use kinesiology for assessing supplements and food, and also it's used in chiropractic extensively. So up to it was at 190 in 1986. Then it went over 200. It went to about 207, came back to 205, and then it kept going up. Last fall, before COVID sort of came for a visit, it was 242, which is the highest it had ever been on the planet. During COVID, it had gone down to as low as 98, which is fear. 150 is anger, 100 is fear, 50 is despair. And that was early mid-April. And it's been coming back up since, and right now it's at 199, we'll say over the previous week. So there's another indicator that we talk about in the beingness of a person, or in the totality of a person. There's the level of consciousness, which is the being, and the level of functioning, which is the doing. So we discovered this in my coaching practice, and I use kinesiology a lot. There were several people who were in the similar range of consciousness, but one of the people that I was doing these assessments on, there's a bunch of people I created these assessments about measuring your consciousness in different parts of your life, because we're not the same in all areas. And he'd mentioned that he believed he was about the same level of consciousness as these people, but he got way more done. And so that was true. He's a very accomplished man. So at least in the world, I don't know about the inner world, but the outer world certainly. So we came up with a term called functioning, level of functioning. So the world, back in 1986, the level of functioning of the world went up to about 300 before the world popped over 200. And before that, it had been going up slowly. And what's happening now is the world's about 285. I checked that this morning, Jeff. I didn't talk about it this morning. It's about 285, and it's going up slowly. So it could be by the end of September, maybe October 2020, we might be able to pop over again, over 200. That's the hope. So we're looking for other ways, other indicators to help look at the trend line. It's just a theory right now, but that's what happened before. So I'm assuming that it will happen again that way. And then once we're over 200, what typically happens, 200 is a threshold. So when you go over 200, you typically don't go to 201 or 202. You go to 205 or 210. There's a lot of momentum. And each point is 10 times more powerful than the previous point. So it's logarithmic. So even a change between 180 and 181 is quite significant because it's 10 times more power. So that's a bit of a long question, but we wanted to talk about the historical perspective, some of the language, and provide some hope for the future, because, hope's always a good thing to have. It's a technical geek answer to your question.
Love it. I'm sure I've got some technical geek listeners who will love that response. So I'm curious, you've gotten to where you are mostly organically. You didn't do paid advertising for most of your duration as a business. So and I know you mentioned referrals, but how else, aside from referrals, have you sort of grown your audience and your client and your customer base?
I could start. Well, we started with leaders. So one of the very first sort of major referrals that we had was someone in the GIN community, Global Information Network, and they had a group of people that were following them personally. And so they had an experience with FLFE, and then they recommended it. So one of the things we've been doing is look for those influencers or those people that have an audience that trusts them, or that have followers that trust them. And it's really about that person then having an experience on the service, and then telling that story and inviting their followers to join and try it. And we've always based it on a free trial, where because it's such a non-linear, I mean, we're activating a high consciousness field at a home or business or around a cell phone. You know, that's not something people normally say, oh yeah, I'll buy that. You know, they've never heard of it before. So the free trial is a way for them to get on without a credit card, without any automatic billing, and just try it. So that was been our strategy, is to find people that have some level of audience and that level of trust. And then we can see the conversion, you know, can be, really depends on that trust. You know, Regina Meredith has got quite a following in the world, and her people that watched her interview of us, you know, they were very likely to convert and become customers if they trust her and her discernment and her professionalism in the way that she reports and the way she interviews and the way she researched FLFE before she talked to us.
Amazing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Regina really put us through the paces. Yeah, she's a hard, well, she has a, you know, a pretty good reputation. She's very protective of it. She's a hard evaluator. She really, we did a bunch of stuff for her. You know, it took months. It's like, okay, she couldn't deny it after a while, but it was, and I've known Regina for a long time before that, for about 10 years, but she won't, you know, she doesn't recommend anything that she doesn't have a thorough examination of. So that's our experience. And she's been delightful to work with. And Lee Harris has come on recently as well. And those are the people who have, you know, communities around them that trust them and have a personal relationship where they're at least willing to try it. And then that's, you know, that's as much as we can ask for. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it has this snowball effect. For instance, I've got somebody on my team who, when we first had a call with y'all to talk about working together, you offered a free trial to the folks on my team. And she was blown away within 2 weeks. Within that free trial period, she got engaged, a lawsuit was dropped, and somebody bought her condo. I mean, it was just like wild. So she's been, every time we talk about y'all now, she gets giddy. So that's obviously, it's a hard thing, I think, as somebody in marketing and in business, it's a hard thing it is kind of a harder thing to sell to a cold audience, to say like, hey, we're going to put some focused life force energy on you and it's going to do amazing things for you, but we can't really quantify it.
Yep.
But the people that experience it, like my friend in Atlanta and like my team member and like myself, you know, it's something that it's unspeakable, that you just kind of have to have your friends have faith in, and you know. But I mean, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're working on now is evidence. You know, I mean, we've got people can try the free trial, and we want them to trust themselves and experiment with the service, turning it on and off and playing with it through the controls that we have. And we want to have more and more evidence. So we've got a page, but we've got a number of researchers now interested. And in the coming year, we should start to have more and more evidence that may give us other ways to talk about it. You know, it's a constantly evolving, you know, experience for us, and explaining it as well. And as more things come to light, then it gives us more ways to talk about it. So
yeah, you guys do. Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of companies in this space, and of the ones that are in the space, we've done by far the most research. I mean, it's on our. We have a pretty significant evidence page. We had a gas discharge visualization study that demonstrated less entropy or chaos in an environment, and we had the Institute of Noetic Sciences do a study with us. Jeff's really articulate and explaining that. But these are, you know, this was a very reputable third-party institution that's had decades of consciousness research experience, and, you know, very well-structured protocols. And, you know, we've seen changes in brainwave activity And we actually changed the random number generators inside of a Faraday caged room
Wow.
with, steel room. The room was 3 inches of
I'm
metal and
curious
stuff. Jeff,
what patterns those numbers shifted towards, because I love numerology.
well, Jeff might be able to talk more about that.
Well, I'm afraid I can't give you a numerology number out of that, but it's very complex. They had four different random number generators, or quantum number generators, they call them, in this room, one in each corner. And then within each one, there were multiple channels. There were independent random number generators. So it was quite a complex mathematical, analysis. But what they saw were like waves coming through. So you expect everything to be random, completely random, not connected. But these waves were connections between the number generators. Like the one in this corner and this corner suddenly were together. And it would come through in a wave, and then maybe it would hit another random number generator. So there's some kind of what they thought were like multidimensional waves occurring during the time of the experiment. It was unmistakable, the effect.
Amazing. Yeah, the left brain part of me is really super into that. And
on the website, you could take a look. There's some details there.
Yeah.
How do you guys stay in alignment with your customers and make sure that the things that you continue to offer, you added cell phones and this, how do you ensure that what you're creating and offering resonates with the people?
You want to start?
Yeah, I'll pick that one up. I guess there's degrees of alignment. It's probably not an on or off thing. A lot of the new aspects of the service that we offer, and we're constantly adding more value. We get very excited about that, and we've often talked about, if we spent more time trying to grow the business and less time trying to add value and add more services to the package, we'd probably a bigger business. But it's a lot of fun, and it really warms our heart to help people. Typically, the service, in terms of alignment with the community, we look at what are the issues that people have in their lives. So, for example, we have a guarantee that the level of consciousness on the property is at 560 or higher in the Hawkins map of consciousness 98% of the time over a 24-hour period. So if it's not at that level, you get it for free until we fix it. Because what happens is some properties have geopathic stress zones or things like that on them that lower the level of consciousness and in some cases make the properties quite unhealthy to live on, or parts of the properties. So we check the properties 3 times a week. That's our promise, and we've been checking them every day for a few months. We check all that's actually the new people on the free trial. We check all the properties once a week, and what we noticed with some properties is they were dropping below 560. And we were trying to figure out what was going on. So we would call the customer and they say, well, what's going on? And they say, well, they just put a new smart meter in my home. Or they just, is there any construction in the area, anything like that? Oh, they just put a new cell tower up in the neighborhood. And so what we determined after a while was that it was the increased electromagnetic frequencies were dropping the level of consciousness of the properties. And so we started doing research on EMFs and we started doing research on EMFs. We came across the ideas of blocking the EMFs to try to get the conscious back up of the properties, and where you can dissipate it or have it go around or deflect it somehow. But then it has to go somewhere. And then we came across an idea called harmonizing, where you take the incoming electromagnetic frequencies that are consciousness lowering, that's our kind of specialty in measuring that, and we make them consciousness raising. And the gas discharge visualization camera, we believe, is it's the only device sensitive enough to measure subtle energies that we found. We're actually in the queue for Dr. Emoto's lab to do some pictures of FLFE infused water. We have a lot of programs on the water. The programs are really request to divinity. Maybe Jeff can talk about that. He's the program writer primarily. But EMFs is an example of something happened to drop the level of consciousness, and we found this material. So we found this idea called harmonizing, and then we discovered shungite. Now, shungite is the only material that we've ever found, and we believe it's the only material on the planet that can harmonize or make positive consciousness-lowering electromagnetic frequencies. So we put the energetic essence of shungite into the FLFE field in such a way that anything that comes onto the property is made positive. And any device on the property that is emanating a consciousness-lowering electromagnetic frequency now becomes a positive emitter of energy. And so the average property went up 4 points on the Hawkins map after that. And that's a lot of how the service grows and how we stay in alignment. It's like it's based upon the needs of the people. That's just a big story about it. But, you know.
Great. Yeah. What kind of people do you feel like really resonate with y'all?
Well, it seems to be some different groups. We had EMF sensitives who had heard about it from other people and came on for that reason. But most of the people that are FLFE subscribers and who tried on the free trial, they're interested in their own consciousness. They're interested in their own evolution, and and health and well-being is important to them, and they're looking for new ways to mitigate what they feel can be a toxic environment out there in the world. Just with everything that's occurring. So people are, we have probably a core group. They're on the path. They're really working it to grow themselves, and they're seeing that as a support for them. And then we have a group that are energy workers. So their business is doing, healing work and even acupuncture. We've had some clinics go on and saying that they were seeing improved results with the FLFE. So that's another group where they're expending energy as an energy worker, Reiki, those kind of things, or just healing, and they like the support. And then there's those that just feels good. They heard about it from a friend. It feels good to them. It seems to be improving their life. The environment feels better, but they may not have a drive to evolve like some others might.
Yeah, awesome. How do you guys feel? What's your next level? Like I would say, we talked about the impact that you want to make. What would you say is your next level, and how do you plan to get there?
Wow, I'm just laughing, Clayton, about what Lewis. We have a new acting director of research, and he says our next level is just to be ubiquitous. We're in every home. That's his goal for us. And part of how he feels we should get there is through more evidence, more connection to scientists, digging into what's really occurring through, this deeper research, really well-designed research as we can afford to fund and find researchers that are just really excited to do it. How about you, Clayton?
Yeah, interesting question. I just was thinking of we're moving into a new office this fall. That's kind of the next level. We're growing. I like the vision of Lewis. There's 90% of the energy, Sarah, we give away of all the energy that the machines have. We do service work on the world. And there's a lot of ways to answer that question. I mean, we're working on some really exciting stuff. Like we've got, we're coming out with an EMF 2.0 program a little later on this year, and another upgrade that we've done. Probably shouldn't mention the name of it, but we'll. And we have this other thing called nutrient stream optimization, where we found out in the beginning that if you energize the food, it helps the body digest it easier. It's just like having really good organic fresh food versus food that's been in, the fridge for a couple of weeks. You just haven't gotten around to eating it, right? And that, because digestion is the most energy consuming process of the body. So if you can add positive energy to the food, it helps the body save energy. And then we've had that for years. And then about 6 months ago, I think it was, we discovered that if you energize the specific nutrients in the food, the body can absorb those nutrients better. Well, we believe the body can absorb those nutrients better. And people are having experiences of more satiation, eating less. And we've got, I don't know how many nutrients, maybe 30, Jeff would know this better than I do, maybe 30 to 50. But there's 600 plus on our list, and that's probably pretty conservative, left to do, because there's so many nutrients and micronutrients in food. So those are a couple of them, like nutrient stream optimize, energization, energize the nutrients, and we're moving our office, and there's a couple 3D ones.
Nice. I like the idea of having a FLFE on the whole planet. That's pretty cool. And it's my honor to do my part in helping it get there. So thank you so much. How can people best find you?
Well, FLFE.net is the website. And right there on the front page is a free trial button that you can jump in and try that. And what's really interesting about that is we're inviting everyone to be a consciousness researcher. There's a control panel that you can access, which you can turn it on and off. You can turn just the EMF mitigation part on and off. And then we have a consciousness slider that you can move up and down the level of consciousness support in the property. So you can have it all the way up at 560, or you can even go to 570, or you can dial it back down. And then we have something called a boost, which is a 600 on the Hawkins map, and that edge of enlightenment there that helps people.
Why wouldn't you want to just have it on 600 all the time and boosting yourself and being like, I want to be in love and enlightenment 24/7?
Yeah, there's this thing called having to work and make a living that shows up once in a while. Where
if we all went to 500 and 600, maybe that would disappear. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, awesome. So yeah, you can be found on your website, Facebook. Sign up for a free trial. And I love the toggles on the back end. Those are super fun. But absolutely, if you're listening to this now, check it out. You've got absolutely nothing to lose, and it's had a huge impact on my life and several people that I know. So I'm super grateful for that piece of our work together, and for the opportunity to help you get in front of more people. So thank you guys, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, Sarah. Thank you.